All right, let's talk a little recruiting. Florida State loses a recruit to Syracuse. Not maybe the most exciting news. And then, so that's Cameron Wilson, an edge prospect out of Miami. 3 stars. So maybe you guys are saying like, oh, no big deal. Did we really want him? Yes, he was a priority for Florida State. Zach Blostein of Noles 247 literally put in a crystal ball for him when he was during Legacy Weekend last week. And so really liked FSU's chances with him. An in-state kid picks Syracuse over the Noles today. A long way to go till signing day. The same way that you guys tell me every time we get a commit, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal because wait till signing day. The same is true here. The same is very true for Florida State. Having a chance to get him to stay home. But it's not a good look to really want a kid and lose him to Syracuse when, by all accounts, things seem to be trending in your direction just last week.
Yeah, and I think one thing, especially about not to go all old man yelling at clouds, this younger generation is very influential. And if you were on a visit with him and you see that he ended up picking Syracuse when Florida State had him as a priority, that's just a bad look because it starts to make other recruits start questioning themselves, like, oh man, well, he chose Syracuse over Florida State because Florida State is still one of the biggest brands in the country. But when you cannot lose recruiting battles to Syracuse, especially from a homegrown in-state recruit. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's frustrating. Again, it's early. Recruiting typically picks up in about 2 months from now when June gets going and you have all these summer officials start picking up. But it's just a bad look because, again, like you said, was a 3-star. Was he even a take for Florida State? Yes, he was a take for Florida State. Not only was he a take, Florida State really wanted him. And it's just frustrating to see the staff. And I know it's mostly a newer staff, but under Norvell struggle in high school recruiting. And, I don't know if it's a curse of Travis Hunter or what it could be, but it's just, it's frustrating as a fan who wants to see the best, most talented roster put together, who I show up to watch on Saturdays.
We'll get right back to the video, but first I do want to give some love very quickly to our friends over at Russo & Co. Chris Russo has been a CPA since 2002. He got an MBA in 2004. He's got a law degree. He's an FSU fan just like you and I are, and he will absolutely take care of your business if you have any needs right now, whether that's in tax, whether that's in payroll, whether that's in preparing 1099s or W-2s, cash reconciliations, payroll processing, whatever it may end up being. It is heavy tax season right now, but if you need any assistance, accounting, bookkeeping, whatever that might be, reach out to Chris Russo. His information is in the description. It's down below underneath me right now. Tell him that you heard about him on Double Fries No Slaw. He'll give you a free consultation. He will get you hooked up. Listen, if you have any tax questions just in general, maybe you don't end up using them, but you just have a question, reach out to him today. Say hello. If you want an introduction, reach out to me, and I'm happy to provide that for you. But Chris Russo, a great guy, a guy that I've enjoyed interacting with and working with. Make sure that you are supporting him if you are in need today. Yeah, Bo Bentley eliminates Florida State from consideration, releases a top 3 that Florida State's not in. He's a quarterback target that Florida State was certainly trying to make a move with. Richie, I mean, we're 2 days from it, but we're essentially into April now. Florida State obviously doesn't have a QB committed to this class and doesn't seem super close on having one in the fold either. And so, on that, so just a couple of pieces of recruiting news. I understand that there are probably some things working against this staff. I think negative recruiting is a very real thing. I think that other programs, other coaches are certainly using a 2-10 season against them. I think they're using Mike Norvell's future and just longevity here against Florida State. I think that I don't know the specifics around these 2 kids specifically. But I do think that Florida State at times has there's a perception around Florida State of being cheap. I don't think they're, I know the jokes would be that they're broke. I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think that they just at times aren't willing to kind of push all their chips to the middle of the table on certain recruits. And so you lose out to them because of that. And then I think that you've also like I think you are looking at a brand new staff that it does take time to develop some relationships, and it does take time to really start to get kids trending your way, and that's not an overnight thing. But all of that said, Norvell knew that there were issues with recruiting, and it was his job to address those. And we'd like to think that he addressed some on the field things. We'd like to think that the offense maybe runs a little bit better without him being in the middle of it. We'd like to think the offensive line does a little bit better this year without him being in the middle of it. Obviously fired Randy Shannon. You'd like to think that the linebackers look a little bit better. Tony White's got some experience. JP moves back there. You tried to upgrade your defensive line because obviously that wasn't very good. So we're hopeful that there are some changes on the field that we see, but I just don't know how confident I am in this staff being able to recruit. I had kind of said like this has to be a top 15 class. I still think they'll get around there. So I'm not necessarily like backing it down to like 20 or anything like that. But I'm telling you, my confidence of it being much higher than 15 is fairly low right now. And I don't necessarily know that Mike went out and made all-star recruiting hires. I mean, we were all really, really excited about Terrence Knighton. I'm not telling you that, I'm selling on him or that they need to move on again already. But I mean, you've got a 3-star from in your own state and you're losing him to Syracuse. I mean, like that just can't happen. Like when you make a kid a priority and he's in the state of Florida, I mean, you just don't lose him. Now, you got a long way to go before December gets here to try and make up for that. But I don't know. It just doesn't instill a lot of confidence when that's happening now. And so I mentioned this to you off air. I don't know. You look at the talent that's on the team, and there is some good young talent. They brought in some good DBs. They brought in some good wide receivers like Elijah Moore and others that, Boggs, that you kind of hear his name flip from UCF. I think they've done a good job with certain positions. They did a good job at defensive end this year in recruiting. They've got some offensive line that I think that will show promise. They really like Ousmane Kroma, the running back. And so there's some good talent there. But it almost feels like Mike is doing everything he can to go all in on this season to get to 6 or 7 wins. And if he does that, he's going to be back for another year. And it's not like there's just a plethora of young talent on this roster that just needs to wait a year or two and then it'll be good. I mean, he's going to have to go live in the portal again after the December, in the December, transfer window again. And he's going to have to find a quarterback and he's going to have to do that. And so I don't know. I don't have a ton of confidence long term when I see what we're doing recruiting. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. I don't think they're getting elite guys. It's great that Hayes Fawcett hasn't mentioned us much, committed to XYZ over these 3 schools. He's never mentioned us because we're not in it for any of the elite guys. So at least we don't get trolled like this kid picked another school over us because we're not in it for those guys. And that has been a hallmark of Norvell's tenure here. There have been spurts where we did recruit really well. I'm not jumping ship off of the Florida State bandwagon because it's April and we're not recruiting well, but man, with the way that kids are moving up their timelines, a lot of kids are committing in April and May and June, as opposed to like August and September or waiting until close to signing day. You can certainly flip some guys, and they flip some guys around signing day. And so, yes, that can absolutely happen. This was actually the best close I think we've seen from Mike Norvell yet, but it just doesn't instill a lot of confidence as to which direction this program is going. And I know there's a lot of negative around the program, but I don't know. I've certainly got concerns about where the recruiting is right now. And again, it's not just the one kid. It's not just the quarterback. It's just, overall, it doesn't look real good right now.
Yeah, and right now the majority of elite prospects have already been crystal balled to some school. And, crystal balls, I think more often than not, they are pretty accurate. And if you don't have a quarterback right now, like we talked about earlier, that's a problem. Because quarterbacks are the very first elite prospects to commit to a school. It's one thing for a running back or a linebacker or someone else, but quarterbacks, they are usually locked in by June at the latest, the good ones that everybody wants. And to your point, the majority of the trend has been that a lot of these high school prospects, especially the ones that have multiple options of high school offers, they are going to be committed. They want to be committed before they're senior season in high school starts. And we're just not seeing that right now at FSU. And it's, again, I hate to use the word so many times, but frustrating that we're just not getting there. And I don't know if it's a recruiting strategy. I think for, Willie's, going back to Willie, his biggest problem was, he had the number one player basically in every position in the country at Seminole Showtime his first year. And then the season happened. So he didn't have a plan B, C, D. And I'm not sure Mike has a plan B, C, D either, because I think he knows who he wants. And when they end up elsewhere, I think he just starts to scramble. And that's been a concerning trend year over year since he's been here.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm certainly not anti nor like I want him to work out. I want us to recruit well. I want us to get elite guys, but man, just how many times do you have to see it and see it blow up in our face? Whether it's guys flipping on signing day, whether it be you're not getting enough elite guys in, whether it just whatever the situation is. And I get it. They went 2-10 last year. But let me tell you something. They won 10 games 2 years before that, and they won 13 games the year before that. And we didn't really see it capitalized then either. And so, last year sucked, and we might be dealing with some negative ramifications for that. But no matter what the issues are, this is still Florida State, right? And I watched Mario have a below 500 record and recruit in the top 10. And I've seen Napier in a couple of years have very bad records and recruit around the top 10. They went 7-5 this year and recruited like the number 8 class, I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes you just got to get out there and do it. Auburn, same way. And I get it. Those programs spend money. Those programs pay up. I understand that. But at the end of the day, this is still Florida State. And it's just ultimately not good enough. If last year would have happened and there was a plethora of young talent sitting on the bench and you just said, like, just wait till next year, right? We'll rebound. That'd be one thing, right? But the reason we couldn't go to our young guys was because they weren't very good either, right? We've got some studs. They've recruited well, and you think about Charles Lester and some of the other guys they brought in. That's not a slam at everybody, but yeah, when you're stacking top 20-ish classes year after year after year, you don't have guys that are day one ready, and they continue to kind of lose out on some of those guys. So I don't know. Not trying to. It's almost just I'm not. Maybe we are sounding the alarms, right? Maybe we are kind of being negative about it, but yeah, they're just not. They're not winning enough battles against the elites. And so they're not winning any battles against the elites. Let's be real. But they're winning very few battles against the teams that are, I'd say, comparable to them. And then they're starting to lose battles to teams they shouldn't lose battles to. And I don't care if it's NIL. I don't care if it's this. I don't care if it's that, the other, whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of excuses you can make. Sometimes you just got to nut up and be Florida State and win a battle, right? And so, yeah, I did see they signed a long snapper today. So, good,
Nice.
good stuff there. So there, all the negative, at least they got some, he'll probably have plenty of, never mind. He'll probably get
special teams will always be elite.
He'll probably get plenty of action with the way the rest of the recruiting goes. So, it probably is smart to have somebody that's pretty good there. So, all right, that's all I got on recruiting.